Hey, what's up guys, welcome to FineGap, and in today's video I'm going to teach you that how you can create a book notes taking application in Next.js. So friends, video is going to be more important, but before starting the video, let me give you an overview that what we are going to build. First of all, we will create a new form and a user can add new books using this form. For example, let me type here 7 habits of highly effective people, and then user can add the author name. For example, he can add Robert, and he can also add the book image URL. So you can see that I have opened this book image. If I right click on it and click on copy image link and paste here and click on submit, so you can see that the new book is added successfully. The second part is once user will read that specific book, he can add the notes that what he learned in this book. For example, if I click on take notes, and he can add I learned lorem ipsum from this book, and if I click on submit, so you can see that the note is added. If he will go back and if again he will open, the notes will be here. We are not going to use any database. The data that we will use in this application will be in local storage, so don't worry, we are not going to teach you Node.js because in the data we will use in local storage. Tailwind CSS will be used to design this. Obviously you can use that, you can now that this is very flexible library to design user interfaces, so you can improve this user interface as much as you want. In this video I will teach you step-by-step process that how you can build this application. So without any delay, let's start. Okay friends, first of all you can see that I am on my desktop, and first of all we will create a new folder. So I will right click here, select new and folder. I'm going to name this books notes app. You can give any name to your folder. So now I will open this folder, and before executing further commands I just want to let you know that you must have to install npm which states Node Package Manager in your Windows before doing the steps that I'm going to do here. So first of all, if you want to install this, you can open your browser and here you will search for Node.js. So you will see this first website. You have to open this website, and from here you can download this Node.js. One thing that I want to tell you that npm will be automatically installed once you will install Node.js in your computer. So I'm not going to teach you these steps. You can watch a separate video if you want to learn that how you can install Node.js. It is very simple. Just you have to click on download this and next, and your download will be completed. So let me close this again, and you can see that I have opened my folder named books notes -app, the folder that we have created here. So now I will click on this URL and you will see this address bar. So I will remove this address bar, and here I'm going to type cmd. So what it will do, it will open the command line interface in my current location. So currently you can see that currently I was on my desktop where we created the new folder named books-notes-app. So in this folder I'm going to write a npm command which will help me to set up my Next.js project. So first of all I will type here npx create -next-app, and then you will type here @ and latest, and then you will type space and dot. So maybe you will find some commands on the internet where they will ask you to write folder name here, but this step we are already done here. You can see that we have created this folder, so that's why, and currently we are inside this folder in which we want to download the project source directories. So that's why I'm typing here dot. So if you have skipped the first step, means creating this folder and open the command line interface in this specific folder, then you can type here your folder name. But in my case, I have already created this folder, and currently I have opened the command line interface, means cmd, inside this folder. So I will simply type here dot. So now if I will press enter, you will see that it will ask me some questions like, would you like to use TypeScript? So I will type here no, and it is asking me that would you like to use ESLint? So I will press yes. Tailwind CSS, yes, we require Tailwind CSS. This is very useful library that we use to design websites. So I will also press yes, and next it is asking that would you like to use source directory? Yes, we need this. You will see that it will create a main src directory in your folder in which you can place all of your JavaScript and CSS and other files. And next it is asking for app router. Yes, and from customize the default import alias, I will select here no. So these were the some questions that it asked me, and we have answered this. And now what is, you can see that it is installing our Next.js project. Okay, yes, you can see that now once your installation will be completed, it is stated that success created book notes -app at this position. So if I minimize this, you can see that all the required files are created inside my this specific folder. And now first of all, if you want to execute your this program, but before executing, let me open this in Visual Studio Code. You can use this shortcut. Visual Studio is a code editor which is already installed in my computer. So first of all, I will again type here cmd, and here I'm going to type here code and space, and this time again I will type here dot, and once I will press enter. So now let me remove this from here, and this was the terminal that we were using, but you can now close this, because the good news is Visual Studio Code provide you the built-in terminal that you can use the run these npm commands. So just we need to click on these three dots. You will see the terminal option here. Maybe in the front end you will see the terminal option, and once you will hover on this, you will see new terminal, or maybe you can use this shortcut to open your terminal. So if I click on it, you can see that the terminal is open, and now I will type here npm run dev. So you have to type this command to see your project in running, but this project is running in a developer mode. If you can see here that our project is set up at this path in localhost. So simply I am going to control click on this, and you can see that the Next.js project is set up successfully in our localhost. So congratulations. So the next part we have to do is we have to create a form here, so user can add the books that he is going to read. So again, first of all, I will open my code. I'm going to close this terminal, and from here you can see that we have source directory named src. I will open this. Inside this again we have the app directory. Inside the app directory, first of all, I'm going to create a new folder named components. Inside this folder, I'm again going to right click and click on new file, and I'm going to name this like book-form.js. I will press enter here. So in this component we will write the code which will be a mixture of HTML and JavaScript, and that code will take input from the user and create and store the data of that specific book in our local storage. So let's do this. So first of all, make sure to type here use client, and I will tell you that why we are going to use this, and then I'm going to type here export default and function, and I'm going to name this book form. So like this, and here again I'm going to type this, and inside the return statement I'm going to type here a div I am a book form. So that's it. So this is our simple component, and now what I'm going to do, if I close this folder, and here you can see that we have the page.js. So basically this is our main file. So this is the code that is written, and if you notice here, so this output is because of this code. So now again let me remove all of this code, and I'm going to create a div simply. Obviously I'm also going to remove this import statement because we are not going to use this image, and before I'm going to type here import book form. So you can see that it is also suggesting me that I want to import the book form. So I will select this import book form from components and book form. So now let me again type here book form. So I'm going to type this. If I refresh and zoom in the screen, you can see that I am a book form. So this is the same code that we have write in our book-form.js component. So now we will make the form user interface to get input from the user. Now the next step is we have to create the form here, and then we need to design this using Tailwind CSS, and the data that user will be entered in the form, we will save that data in local storage. So let's do that. So first of all I will create here a div which will be our parent div, and I'm going to give class p-4, which is a tailwind CSS class to give padding from all sides, from top, from right, from left and from bottom. So, and inside this again I'm going to type here h1, and here I'm going to give class to this text-2xl space mb-4. so text-2xl is also tailwind CSS class which define the size of our heading, and mb4 stand for margin bottom. So these both two classes are of tailwind CSS classes. Now I will type here add a book. Let me run my project, npm run dev. So you can see that add a book text here. If I open this global.css file, I want to remove this default style from here. So now you can see that we have just a simple heading here, and next I will again open the book-form.js, and I'm going to create a form here, HTML form, and inside this I will type here on submit. But before doing this, let's just complete the UI for the input fields. So first of all I will again create a div here. This div will be the parent of the input field that will accept book name from the user. So again I will type here label. Inside this I am going to type here book name. Again I will give some classes to this like block and mb-2. So these two classes are of tailwind CSS classes. And next again I will type here an input element, and now I will give some custom attributes like the type of this input field, which will be text, and I will give some classes like border, some padding, and width would be full, and text color would be black. So now let me show you that how our this input field will look like. So you can see that here user will enter his book name. So similarly I'm going to copy this, but before copying this I'm going to give class here like mb-4 to create a margin bottom to this div. Now I will copy this from here, paste this, and inside this label I will type here author name. So basically this is the code for the second input which will accept the author name from the user, and no need to change anything. Similarly again I will copy this and paste here, and just I'm going to type here book image URL, and in the last before this form element we have to create a submit button. So I will type here submit. So now you can see that we have submit button here, and let me type here let me give some style to this like bg-below 500 and text-white, padding will be 2 and rounded. So now you can see that by giving those specific classes our button will look like this. So we have designed our form which will get the book data from the user, and the next step is once user will type data in these fields and click on submit button, what we will do, we will get data using JavaScript from these input fields and store that data in local storage. So here you can implement your custom logic. Maybe if you are using Node.js in the backend, so you can send this data to your server, and maybe you can save that data in your database, whichever database you are using, maybe MongoDB or MySQL. So but in this example, because this is just only a front-end tutorial, so what we can do, we can simply save that data maybe in your use state hooks or maybe in your local storage. If you will only save your data in use state hooks, your data will be lost once user will close your tab. And if you will save your data in local storage, so that data maybe that data will be saved maybe until some days, maybe for 30 days. So it's depend on browsers that after how much time your browser will delete the local storage. So it's better idea to save your data in local storage, but still if your data capacity is large, so local storage will not be a good fit for this, because local storage also have its limitations. Okay, so now you can see that this is our button. First of all, what we are going to do, you have to define a type here. I'm going to define the type submit, and then scroll up, and from this form tag I will press here enter, and here I will pass a attribute like on submit. Inside this I will call a function like this. So first of all I will type here prevent default, and after this we need to type here we need to call a function like handle submit, and that's it. we do not have defined this function yet, so first of all we need to define this. So I will copy this function name from here, and inside our this book form component, and before this return statement, I'm going to type here const this function name, and before this I will type here equal to, and like this. So basically you can say that this is a arrow function that we are assigning to this variable. So now you can directly, maybe you can directly type here like this, like function and this, or maybe you can create a variable and assign a function to this. You can you know that in JavaScript we assign string values, integer values, arrays and objects to variables. So similarly you can also assign a function to your this specific variable. So for example, when you define object, then you type your object name or maybe your array name and type this type of bracket and do some operations. But in this case we have defined this function, and we can samely use this variable to call our this specific function. Before writing any logic inside this handle submit function, first of all let's just learn that what is mean by e.prevent default. If you will start learning HTML, you will know that when we create a form and then we create a submit button, here you can see that we have create a button of type submit, and here if we will define an action, or maybe if we will not define an action, but once user will click on the submit button, your form will be submitted to the server. So this is a function is used to stop that process. We do not want to submit our form to the server because we want to handle our data using JavaScript, and then we will save this data in local storage. So that's why this is important. You should write here, otherwise the JavaScript that you will write here will not work, because once you will submit, your form will be submitted to the server and you don't have write any logic to handle that specific data. So this is very important to do that. Okay, now let's move in this here, but before this I'm going to type here some use state hooks like book name and set book name is equal to use state, and here I will type here double quotation, and here I will type semicolon. To use this use state, you must have to import this inside your component. So in my case, my code editor automatically do this import use state from React. So if you miss this, so please try to import this and then you can use this use state, otherwise your app will generate an error. And similarly this is the variable that will store data, and this is the callback function that returned by use state, which we can use to set the value of book name. For example, if I want to change the book name, then this function, this is the function like we define here, this will be used to add data inside this variable. So you can define any name to this, but the good approach is, for example, if you have a variable like book name, so you can use set keyword because it will be a descriptive that what is the main purpose of this variable, either this is a function or this is a variable. So this is very important. If you will write here set, and if your component will go long, then it will be very helpful for you to manage your code. And now again I will simply copy and paste this here, and here I'm going to type here author name, and similarly I will type here set author name, and then simply I will copy paste here, and the third variable would be book image, and here I'm going to type here set book image. The value that we pass inside this function is the default value of our this variable. For example, the benefit of using use state hook variables, when your component will re-render, the data that's stored inside these use state hooks will not be lost. Otherwise, if you will create simple variables like let a is equal to something, so when if you on runtime, if you will change the value of this variable, but in case if your component will re-render, the data inside of your a variable will be lost. So this is very important for you to use these use state hooks. And the next variable that we have to create is const. No, I think these three variables are enough. And next I'm going to write here some logic. For example, if I scroll down, here you can see that this is the container of our first input field, which is book name. And then here inside our input field, I'm going to type here on change. So whenever user will type something here, inside this I will type a callback function, which is an arrow function. And now I'm going to call set book name. So this is the function that is returned by useState, which is used to set the value of this book name. As I already told you, if I scroll down and type here like this, so by using this e parameter, and this parameter is automatically passed by JavaScript inside this function. So I will type here e dot target dot value, and then you can do one more thing. After this on change, let me type here value. As you know that value attribute in JavaScript is used to display some value inside our input field. So simply I will type here book name. So let me explain you this logic. Before this, let me type here console.log. Here I'm going to type here function is called. After this I'm going to console.log the e object, so you can see that whatever comes inside this. And after this I'm going to type here console.e.target, and in the last I'm going to console.log, which is e.target.value. So first of all, let me refresh. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to console here, and let me zoom in a little bit. So for example, if I type here a, so do you notice that what happened? Function is called, this is the console that we print here, and then it prints the e. As I told you, this is the default parameter that is passed by JavaScript. We do not do anything, but this is done by JavaScript. And this is an object which contains a lot of information. But the only information we required is e.target. So if you notice here, this is returned by e.target. So here you can see that we can get multiple values from here, and like data set and maybe inner HTML. But we even do not need this event.target, because we do not need this complete input element. We just need its value. So that's why I have right here e.target means this input field, dot value means the current input field in which user is typing and its value. And then what will be happen when you will write a, this function that we write here on change will be called, because the value of our input field will be changed and the value of this useState hook will be updated. And once its value will be updated, here you can see that we have assigned the same value that we are storing inside our book name to our that specific input field. One thing you need to keep in mind, that once the value of this book name variable will be changed, our this component will be re-rendered. But as I already told you that when our this component re-render, the data that's stored inside this useState hooked variables do not change or do not lose. And here you can see that we are again assigning the value that is stored in our book name variable to our this input field. So this is how the process will go when user will start typing something in our book name variable. And in simply whenever user will type something in book name variable, the data will be stored inside this book name variable, which is a useState hook variable. So similarly we need to do the same. First of all, let me remove this console.log, and we need to do the same for all other input fields. So let me copy this from here, and again I am going to paste here. Just in case of author name, we need to copy this function name, which is set author name, and I'm going to paste this function here. And similarly I will copy this author name variable, which will store the author name, and I will paste here. And similarly again I will simply copy this and paste this here, and from here set book image I will copy and paste this. And again let me copy this book image variable and paste this. Oh sorry, we need to paste here. And in case of book image, we need to copy this and set author name. This function will be for author name. So I hope you will understand that what we are doing here. Let's move next. First of all, let me refresh, and if I type here like book name Quran, author is Allah, and we can place any book image URL here. In the last, what we need to do, once user will click on submit button, as you know that data will already be stored inside these variables, because On each value change, we have called a function that get the input value and stored inside these variables, and once user will click on submit, inside our this function we will store this data in our local storage. So for let me type here, let book is equal to, or let b is equal to books. Yes, before using this hook we need to again copy and paste this, because book will be the variable that we'll use to store all books data inside it. So I will again type here set books. Initial value would be, I will not going to provide initial value to this, and now I will simply copy this variable and paste here. So if any other previous data will be stored inside this, but I will tell you that from where data will be stored inside this. But before, let's moving to our onward, or let me do one more thing before handling this handle submit. Let's just type here use effect. Again, if you want to use effect hook, you must need to import this from React, and then you can call here the callback function like this, and here I will pass the dependency array. So it means that this function will only be called when your component will be rendered first time. And now here I'm going to create a variable like books collection. So this is a just local variable is equal to local storage dot get item books. So this will be the key in which we will use our data inside our local storage. And here we can do one more thing, JSON dot parts, because we will store our data in the form of JSON. So the data that will be returned by local storage will be in the form of JSON. So first of all, we need to convert this in JavaScript object. So now let me paste here, and again here we will type an OR operator and like this. So this means that if this operations will be failed, maybe wrong JSON returned from local storage, or maybe this books storage do not exist already. So what you have to do, simply return an empty array to this books collection. And again, now I will press here enter and set books, and inside this I will simply type here books collection like this and semicolon. If you, so this is what we are doing initially when our component will render, not re-render but render. We will get data from local storage and save this data in our use state hook variable, which is books. And now again let me uncomment this function. So for example, initially 2 books data was stored in our this local storage. So this function will store that 2 specific books data inside this variable. So now we are getting that previous data inside this b variable, or we can name this existent or previous books data. So this is for you, so you can understand easily that first of all the previous book data will be returned in this variable, and then what we are going to do, previous books data dot push, I will call this push function, and inside this we will again store an object of our some data like book name, our author name, and the book image. And then initially when a new book will be created, we will simply store the notes key. So this key will be used to store that specific book notes inside this. And in the last, we just again need to call the set books function, this function, because we want to set the new data to this. And now we will type here previous books data. Now previous keyword will not look a good fit for this variable. We can name this book data, because once the new data will be stored inside this, so this variable will be not a logic to give book data to this. So again I will type here book data. So first of all, we get the previous book data inside this, insert the new book data inside this our array, and again use this. So this is just we are storing our this data inside this books variable, but we also need to update this data inside our local storage. To do that, I will type here local storage dot set item. Here we need to type the key name, which is books. Then I will type here comma, and maybe you can do this in 2 steps. For example, let book data, or to avoid you from confusion, let me type here inline single line code. So I will simply type here json.stringify. So it means we are converting this JavaScript object to JSON, and inside this we need to pass the books variable. As you know that we are updating our data here, or maybe you can directly copy this book data variable and also paste here. So this was the logic. This was the complete logic for our book form. We just created a form, we get data from the user and store this data inside this useState variables. And once user will click on the submit button, what we do in our form element, we set an on submit listener, because we were not wanted to submit our data in the server. So that's why we type here e.prevent default, and then we call a function handle submit. And here inside our this component above, we declare this function like const handle submit. And first of all, we get the previous data that was already stored in our local storage, inserted the new data in our this object, and then what we do, we simply save this data again to our local storage. So let me show you. First of all, I am going to refresh, and I'm going to type here the first name book, for example Quran, and here I'm going to type here the author name, which is Allah Almighty, and from here Quran book image, and let me copy this beautiful picture, and I'm going to right click here, copy image link, and I'm going to paste this image here, and let me click on submit. So because we do not have defined any alert that your data is submitted, but let's just check that either our data is submitted or not. So first of all, I will type here local storage dot get item, and inside this item I'm going to type here books. So here you can see that the data is stored inside our this local storage. So maybe you will think that this is a lot of data, but I was already testing this app, so this is the previous data that I have stored inside my this specific with this specific key. So let me paste this data here, and here you can see that. Maybe you can see an online editor like JSON to online, JSON to JSON preview. So let me open this first website, and here I'm going to paste my JSON, and let me click on the view. Maybe we can open the JSON beautify. Okay, I think I need to check this, that how to do this, but in simply, if you can notice here that our last object is Quran. So first of all, we have a key which is book name and Quran, and similarly author, and this Allah Almighty, and book image, and this is the URL of our book image. And in the last, we define a key for notes, and we assign an empty array to this notes key, because later we will store user notes inside this our specific notes key. So this was our first step, that we created a form, get data from the user, and we store this data inside our local storage. You can also perform various operations. For example, you can validate data before saving. So if you want to validate data inside this handle submit function, first of all, maybe you can write here your validation logic to push the user to input the right type of data. So it will be a plus point for your application. So now let's move toward the second part of this application, where we need to show the books here below. We will add a book, and the books will be shown here. To do that, first of all, I will right click on this components folder and create a new file named book list.js. So first of all, in this component, again we will type here use client. In Next.js, by default, the rendering of your component is done on server side for different purposes. For example, SEO, to improve SEO of your website. But if you will write use client in your component, then that component will be rendered on client side. So again, first of all, I'm going to type here export default function and function name like book list. So this is a good approach if you give same name to your file and to your component. Inside this, again, I will put a return statement. I will put semicolon here. Again, I will create a container here like div, So first of all, for example, my books list, I will display a simple title here, and now we need to import this component in our page.js. So after this book form, what we can do, we can simply import book list from components folder, and inside our component folder we have this book list folder, and now we can easily use this component here like book list. So that's it. So if you can see in our application now our this title here. So first of all, let's just add some style. I will open the Tailwind CSS official website, and here I'm going to search for maximum width. I will scroll down. From here we can choose different classes, but I'm going to choose this class, and if I paste this class here, okay, this won't work. We have to search for max width. Okay, I'm going to choose this one, maximum width, maybe 2XL, or we can use XL. So I will copy this class from here and paste this class here, and if I refresh, okay, yes, this work. I do not notice. If you can see on the right side, now we have these input fields, not 100% width, but this until here. So now for example, if I type here margin auto, which is also a class of Tailwind CSS, you can see that from the right side and from the left side we have the same margin. So now our content is centered and it is looking better than before. So now we have to display our books here. So first of all, I will again open this component and remove my this h1 tag from here. We should not remove this. So first of all, in this component I'm going to import useState from React, and I will type here const, or maybe we can copy this from here. This is the variable that we will use, not book name but books useState hook variable. So as you know that this again this variable will contain the books data, but before this again I'm going to type here comma and use effect, and this would be a function that we will call here. Inside this we will pass a callback function, and the second parameter would be our dependency array. Make sure you have imported this use effect from React here above in your component, and now we don't need this because we can simply copy this. So this was just for your teaching purpose, and we can copy this and paste this use effect complete function as it is. What we are just doing, we are getting the data from local storage with the key books and storing this data inside our this books variable. And one more thing that we are going to use, that is next router. So I will type here const router is equal to use router. Now I will press here semicolon, so you can see that in case of useState and use effect we import this from React, but in case of use router you have to import this from next hyphen router. So this is used to navigate from one page to another. Now again I will move here and I will type here this books dot map. So the first parameter would be book and the second parameter would be index, and now I will type here this. One thing you have to keep in mind is we don't need to import this use router from next router, but we need to import this from next navigation. And now I am going to type here this bracket. I will type here this div to show you an example, and now I will type here this again this parenthesis and this index keyword. And one more thing, if you can see that books is undefined, so we have to define a default value or the initial value for our books when component will be rendered. So you can see that 0 and 1. Yes, we will discuss this later, but now we have to design the single book view here, and this map, which is a loop, will automatically display all the books inside this. So maybe let me type here book book name. Now if I refresh, you can see that currently there are two books inside my list. The one is Tabir Ki Galti, which is written in Urdu by Maulana Wahiduddin Khan, who are from India, and the second book name is Quran. So yes, obviously the number one book is Quran. We all should learn this book. So first of all, I'm going to convert this div to a list item. Here I will put a closing bracket of list item. I'm going to remove this from here, and here I'm going to type here class name is equal to margin bottom will be 4, flex and items hyphen center. So these are some classes of tailwind CSS that I have that I will use to design my user interface for a single book view. Inside this, first of all, I will type here img, and this, and the source would be is stored in book.book img. So that's it. Let me show you. So you can see that currently we have image of 2 books here. Yes, we will design this, and next we have to type here alt attribute is used that because, for example, due to some reasons, if the URL will unable to load the image, the alt means alternative text will be displayed in the place of this image tag. So I will type here simply book.book name. So this is the all the data that we stored while we was getting data from the user in our add book form. So now we just have to get this data and display this here. Next I'm going to type here a class name. So here is the magic. Width would be 12, height would be 12, and rounded full, and margin right would be 4. So now you can see that currently these images will look like this. Maybe you can increase this width from 12 to 14. So now these are looking a little bit bigger. And next, after this, I'm going to create a div here, and I will give class flex -1. The first div would be of class font bold, and here we will display the book title. So I will type here book.book name. I will simply copy paste this, remove this font bold class, and I'm going to type here text gray -600. So from here I will paste the book author name. Let me refresh. So you can see that we have beautiful this product book images and book names and the author of the books. And similarly, we need to do the next things. We need to define the buttons here on the right side, so user can view the notes of a specific book and he can add the notes of a specific book. So next, first of all, I will create a button here. Inside this, I'm going to type the text view. So first of all, to design this button, I will give some classes like background color bg green -500. So these classes are of tailwind CSS classes, and text -white, padding would be of 2, and rounded and margin right would be 2. So now you can see that this button will be look like this. And similarly, we have to handle the on click listener. Inside this, I will pass a callback function. So I will type here router dot push hyphen means /, and here I will type books / again I will type here dollar and these brackets, so I can write here JavaScript inside this. But to make this JavaScript work, we need to convert this single quote to this backticks like this. So now if you can see, if I click on book, so obviously page node would not be found because we have to create that. But if you can see that the books and the ID of the book is created here. If I go back, if I click on it, so now you can see that our URL is books and the ID of our specific book. So again, first of all, inside your app folder, you have to create a new folder with the name books. Make sure this folder name and the name that you're writing here should exactly match. And once inside this, you will create a new file with the page.js, and here I will type let me ignore this. Here I'm going to type export default function books like this. And what we can do before this return statement, I will create a div here, and here I'm going to import book list from our components and book list, the same component that we have created to show books, that we are creating to show books. So now simply I will copy this component name and I will paste here like this. So now if someone will open this page with the name books, so you can see that this is the beauty of Next.js. The same component is loaded at this position. Simply inside your app folder, you have to create your folder, and inside this folder create the page.js. so if someone inside your domain will type a text, so that text will be that's logic will be handed here inside your page.js. so I'm personally very impressed with this Next.js functionality. We will handle this logic later, but first of all we have to complete this book list.js. After this button we have to create another button to take notes. Inside this button again I'm going to pass some classes like bg blue 500, and text would be white, and padding would be 2, and round it. And same thing we have to do this, but this time the URL would be like this, / and notes. We will learn later in this tutorial that how we will handle these URLs, and for example what URL is accessing, and what content we need to display to the user. We will handle this later, but currently our purpose is to complete this book list component. Let me again go back. So now you can see that almost our book list component is completed. Let me design it a little bit. For example, to beautify this, what you can do, you can give it a class and a padding of maybe 10, and or maybe you can type here 6, and to your this heading you can type here text center, and again let me search here the property font size, and I'm going to copy this and paste here. Now you can see that our this book list title will be look like this, and we have to make it a little bit bold. So the class font bold will be used to bold our this text. We have to type here font hyphen bold. So now if I refresh, so you can see that the heading is looking better than before. So friends, now for example I will type here a book name, maybe for example Rich Dad Poor Dad, and author was Robert Kiyosaki, or let me directly type here Robert, and I'm going to copy the book from here, copy image link and paste here, and if I click on submit, if I refresh the page, so you can see that the book is added in our list. For example, if you want to refresh your page automatically, what you can do, you will simply import the use router from next navigation, and here inside our this component I will type here const router is equal to use router. I will press here semicolon, and here once our data will be saved inside your handle submit function, once our data will be saved in the local storage, what we can do by using the variable that we have created here router, I will type here push, and simply I will type here / so page can be loaded on the same page. Okay, now again let me refresh, and here I'm again going to next book name. For example, maybe let's suppose we have this book, or let's just type a book name like the leader mindset. So let's assume this is a book. I'm going to copy this image from here, and now first of all I will type here the leader mindset. The author would be Muhammad Fahim Hassan. Obviously this is not book, this is just my name, and like Farhan and Raju in the movie in an Indian movie. So let me click on submit. Okay, it did not work. What we can do here, let me just remove this router because we don't need this. We can use another method. For example, I will simply type here window dot location dot reload. That's it. So now if I refresh my page first of all, and let me search here a book, Modoti books for example, and let me copy image link from here and paste here letter to yourself Modi, and if I click on submit, this time you can see that the page will be reload and the book will be displayed here. So friends, the adding a new book in our application and displaying the added books, this part is done in our application. Now we have to do two things. First of all, we will create this view notes functionality, but before this we have to create a functionality to take notes. First of all, if you notice, if I click on take notes, so our URL look like this, books and ID and then notes. So I will open this my Visual Studio Code, And inside the box, first of all, again I'm going to create a new folder, and I will type this brackets. Inside this I'm going to type here id. Again I will right click and page.js. We will code this later because this page.js inside this id folder will use to display the notes of a specific book. But again inside this id I will right click and create a new folder with the name notes. Again I will right click inside this and I'm going to create a page.js. So first of all, let me remove all the files so you can avoid from confusion. And inside the notes folder we have a page.js. I have opened this and I'm going to type here export default function notes, and from here I'm going to return div. And inside this, first of all, in our components folder I will right click on it and I will click here new file. So I will click on it. I'm going to name this noteform.js. So this is the component that we have to create to add new form. But before this, we have to import this component in our page.js, which exists in our notes folder. Because if our URL would be, for example, if user click on take notes, our URL would be books one notes. So it means user want to take some notes, so it means we have to display this component inside our this page.js, which exists inside this notes folder. So first of all I will import this but before importing this from here, let me comment it. And here we need to type here export default note form. But before this, make sure to write here function note form like this. Inside this you have to write your return statement like this. And here let me type here a simple div, add a new form. And now again I will open this page.js. Here we need to import node form from our components folder, which exists in app folder, and then we have the node form file. And now we can easily use this node form here like this. So you can see that when someone type this URL add new node form, means our this component will be displayed to him. So now I am going to remove this, close this in page.js because it was for navigation, and the actual work we need to do is in our node form.js. Okay, now I will open this Visual Studio Code, and inside our node form.js, first of all I will import the use state from React because we need to use the use state variables. And before this return statement, I'm going to create two use state variables. The first one is note, and the function that I'm going to create to set value to this variable is set note is equal to use state. And now the initial value would be empty, and similarly I will create another variable notes, and the function would be set notes. Same thing I will do for this, but initial value will be an empty array for our this variable. Next I'm going to type here const and id is equal to use params. So again you have to import this use params, which is a next JS hook from next / navigation. In my case Visual Studio Code is automatically do this for me. So for example, again let me type here this bracket, and inside this, just for demo purpose, I am again going to type here p paragraph tag like this. So basically, as I told you, okay, it is giving us an error. We must add this use client for server side rendering. And what will be happen, for example, let me cut this from here and paste this id here. Now if I refresh, no id is coming here. The reason is because we need to use params is a function. So now if I again refresh my page, you can see that our id was 1, so here is 1. So for example, if in URL the id would be changed like this, the id in our this specific variable will also be changed. One thing you need to keep in mind, you can see that here in these brackets I have typed id in lowercase, so here you need to type the same. If you will do typo mistakes, then you will be unable to access your id. For example, let me type here ids, and if I will copy and paste this here and refresh, you can see that we are unable to access this id. So make sure this id name should be matched with this folder name. And after this, first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new form. This time maybe you can create a form similarly as we do this for add new book, but maybe you can create a simple input field here. Let me show you. So first of all, I will create an h1 element, and inside this I will type the text add notes, and I'm going to give tailwind css classes like text hyphen 2xl, and margin bottom would be 4. Similarly to the parent div, I will give some padding like p4 from all the sizes. And similarly after this h1, I'm going to create a new input field, and I will type here text. The value would be note. Here the same technique will be used that we used when we were writing the code for add new books. So I hope there is no reason to explain that again. If you don't know how this is working, you can watch the video when we were building add book form. So on change, again we have to call a callback function like this. Inside this same, I will type set note function, and here I will type e.target.value. What it will be do, once user will type anything or any character, this on change attribute will call this arrow function, and here the input value in which user will type his notes will be saved to set note, means in this variable. And after this I'm going to give a class so we can beautify this a little bit. So I will type here border, some padding, rounded borders, width would be full, margin bottom would be 4, and text would be black. So these are the classes that we are going to use. And if I refresh, you can see that now our this add note input field will look like this. And now if I again open my code editor, and here I will again going to create a button. Inside this button I will type here text submit, and I will press here enter class name. First of all, let me type here bg below hyphen 500, and text would be white, padding would be 2, rounded, and margin bottom would be 4. So now you can see that our submit button will look like this. Next thing that is important, we have to do on click, we have to call a function handle add note. And similarly, simply I will copy this from here and paste here handle add note. Before this I am going to type here const is equal to, and we will assign this variable an arrow function. This is the same technique that we used previously. So once user will click on this button, this function will be called. So first of all, what we have to do, I will type here const books is equal to, we need to get the current books data from storage that is already saved in our local storage. So I will type here json dot parse local storage dot get item, and we know that the key for our storage is books. If no key is found, just assign the empty array to this books variable. And let me cut this bracket from here and paste here, because we only have to JSON decode the data that will be found in local storage. Otherwise an empty array will be assigned to this variable. So let's suppose if the data is found, and I hope in real time this page will be only be accessible once user will be add some books, and that data will be saved in our local storage. But this is only maybe for error handling, but if user will properly use the application, this is not going to happen. After this I'm going to type here local storage, not local storage but books hyphen id, and then I will type here notes dot push, and here I will type note. So what it will be do, first of all let me type here return statement and console.log. Okay, so now for example, if user will type here something like, again let me go back and let me open this book, for example note, and we learn Tawheed, and if I click on submit, so you can see that inside our this books variable all the data from local storage will be saved. Let me copy this object from here and I want to paste this here. So the ID of this would be 0, the ID of this would be 1, because this is an array, and you know that in array we access the values by 0 1 means index. We getting the values of arrays by using 0 1. So let's assume this is a single array element. So if you want to get this object, you will use books, then you will pass here ID means 0, and then you will easily able to access any specific object. But in our case the ID is 1, so at index 1 our this object exists, its ID would be 1, and if we want to get its notes, then you can see that first of all I have typed here books ID means 1, which will return us the book of Quran. It will return us this object, and now I am accessing notes object. You can see that the notes of again notes key exists here, and again inside this we are storing an array of notes. So what it will be do dot push note, so the current value, that whatever currently I will type inside this, that data will be saved inside this. But now we have to write the logic to save this data. Now I will remove this return statement from here. The new note will be added to our this data. Maybe you can call this database. Currently we have this database complete, and which contain all the books, their titles and their notes as well. So we can call this our database object. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to type here local storage dot set item, our key which is books, and before saving this data again I'm going to convert this to JSON. So I will type here json.stringify and books. Let me copy this from here and paste here. So now our new updated data will be saved in our local storage again once user will click on the submit button. Obviously you can perform here the logic that whenever user will click on submit, this input field should not be empty. And now after this I will type here set notes to book ID and dot notes. So the current book that we are accessing, in which we are writing notes, it will set all the notes to our this variable that we are using here. And now I will press a semicolon, and in the last set note is equal to, we have to set it empty. So it means that whatever user will type here, that will be empty once his data will be saved in the local storage. So now the last thing is we have to display the notes of that specific book. So now again what I'm going to do, we also need to type here use effect. So it means that initially when our component will be rendered, I'm going to pass a callback function inside this, and in our dependency array I will type the ID. It means whenever our ID will be changed, our this component will be re-rendered. And inside this I will type the simple logic. If ID means the user parameters that we are trying to access, if it is found, if you're writing any advanced application, what you can do, once you get a user PAMs, you can validate this, that either this is an ID, maybe either user do not want to insert any script. So this type of strict test you can implement on this variable after getting this data to make your app more secure. And after this, if ID is found, then what we need to do, I will type here const books is equal to, we need to do the same thing. Let me copy this line from here and paste here, and again I will copy this and paste this line here. What this line is doing, it will get our current database from local storage in JavaScript, and then the current book that we have opened and notes of that book, that notes will be saved inside this variable by using set notes function that we have defined here. And we do not define the function, but we only set the function name. The function is defined by use state hook that we are using. And after this, but we can do one more thing. Before this dot we can write here question mark, and then we can write here or operator, and this basically this is an optional chaining operator that I have used here. You can search about it on YouTube, that what is optional chaining operator. So what it means, for example, if we are try to find a specific book, for example this Quran or maybe someone, you can see that in our each book there is an empty array, but for some reason if this array do not exist here, so to preventing from runtime errors, what will be happen, if nodes key will be not be found, then we will assign an empty array to our this nodes key. So that's it. What we have to do, we simply, once our component will be rendered, we get data from our local storage, and then we get nodes of the current book that user is opened by getting the ID from the URL, and then we simply get all the nodes and stored inside this use state variable. So next, in the last, what we are going to do after this submit button, I'm again going to create a new UL element, and here I will type nodes.map. so the first parameter inside this, I will pass this function, and inside this callback function the two parameters that will be passed by JavaScript, nodes and index of our current item. So first of all I will type here list item and key is equal to index. We are not going to use this key, but maybe later once you will build applications you will find the meaning of this attribute. We can identify any list item using this unique key. And after this I will type here class name. I'm going to give some classes like list, disk, and margin left would be 5, and inside this simply I will display the note. So basically, because we are inside this function, and this, let me type here my note, so you cannot be confused using this above variable note that we have created here. So I have converted this variable name to my note, and that's it. Now if I refresh my page, you can see that the node is displaying here. Again, let me type here we learn Tawheed in this book, and if I click on submit, you can see that we have the second node. If I again go back and again click on the button, so you can see that we are easily access this. Obviously if you only want to display the user the current nodes, means if you want to create this page, you can do that. But I believe that if user will click on take notes, he will easily, he can add notes, and he will be able to see the previous notes that he will be take for this book. So friends, this was the tutorial for beginners, that how we can build a Node.js application in Next.js. You can see that user can add multiple books, and he can see the list of the books that he is reading. And for example, you know that when we read book, there are certain points that is better if you will note them, and here we have write the logic, so he can take notes about that book, so all the data will be saved. So maybe note can be a little paragraph. Let me type here lorem ipsum paragraph. If I press here enter, and let me copy this paragraph here and paste here and submit. So now you can see that obviously user can take big note. Obviously we have implemented Tailwind CSS, so you can design this app to make it more beautiful. Maybe you can show this as a project to your teacher, and maybe you can use this tutorial for your learning purpose. If you like this video, please hit the like button and let us know how we can improve our teaching method, and share this video with those friends who want to learn web development. And finally, thanks for watching. But before this, what we are going to do, simply I will open the page.js. Inside this we have the component for book list, and from here I'm going to remove this view button, because I believe that a take notes button is doing the both stuff. So I'm going to remove this button from here, and now if I refresh, so you can see that everything will be work fine, but only button will be removed. So friends, finally, thanks for watching.